LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the August 5th edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me and Cheech the kitten here, who I think wants, maybe he doesn't want to be put down so much. He actually looks kind of happy. He and I will be using the 9 best, most newsworthy clips from the Sunday morning news analysis shows I picked out from the big 5 corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. Minus Meet the Press, because it was Sunday, but there was no Meet the Press because of the Olympics. But I'll be putting all those clips together for the fair use media criticism and political commentary show you're used to me giving you on Mondays. And this week you can see, okay, I am going to put Cheech down here so I can, corporate media. See, I couldn't do that because of Cheech, but I don't know if anyone was waiting for me to do the air quotes on corporate media, but you can see my main topic is sort of a prediction, but it's actually really down to 2. It's will Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania be Vice President Kamala Harris's pick to be her vice president? That's going to happen tomorrow. So some of you actually who are watching the recorded version of the show, you already know the answer. And you may remember last week I said that several media sources that I watch were saying that it was really down to 3 people. There was Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. And now it's supposedly down to Governor Walz and Governor Shapiro, but who knows? There could still be a surprise. That's just like the conventional wisdom reporting, although it's looking like the edge right now is going to Josh Shapiro, so I put that in the thumbnail and the title of this week's video, and I will be using some clips of discussing the factors of what is driving Kamala Harris's choice for her vice president. You can see some of that briefly summarized in the clip summaries I put down in the video description. And before I get to all that, and before I get to that, I'll get to the news summaries from the 4 corporate outlets I have, mostly about the 2024 presidential campaign, except for Fox News, which covered 2 different things that I'll talk about when I get there. And actually, Fox News bias is the source of my political comedy clip for you all today. It's not the news summary at the beginning of the program. Later, Mark Meredith did a news summary who talked about some of the things going on in the 2024 campaign that didn't make it into the first 2 news summaries I'm going to show you. And Mark Meredith gave a brief description of why Donald Trump had a falling out with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp that I guess he described it in the way only Fox News could describe it, I guess, over in this clip.
At the rally, Trump also launched multiple attacks on Georgia's sitting Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Trump and Kemp were once political allies, but they had a major falling out after the 2020 election. Trump claims Kemp should have done more to help him win the state. We also have the latest fundraising data.
Trump says Kemp should have done more to help him win the state. Win the state. That's how Fox News describes what happened in Georgia in 2020. I put a link down in the video description under sources to a Washington Post article from December 2020 titled "Inside the Nasty Feud Between Trump and the Republican Governor He Blames for Losing Georgia." And here's a screenshot of a couple of the paragraphs from that article. In phone calls and conversations with allies and advisors, Trump has griped that Kemp was not pushing Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to do more to reverse President-elect Joe Biden's victory, not defending the president on television, and he certified the election results. So he followed the law and did what the Constitution requires. He did his duty as a government official in Georgia instead of helping Trump steal the election, not steal the state of Georgia, not win the state of Georgia. And you may remember the infamous phone call that Trump had with the Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. I put a link down in the video description also to this PBS video available free on YouTube of Brad Raffensperger testifying to the January 6th committee about how Trump tried to steal the state of Georgia, including with this infamous audio clip from the phone call that was recorded between the two of them over here.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
You remember that? I don't know why it's a one more than we have. That's always bothered me. It's like a little... It shows that maybe Trump's cognitive decline goes all the way back to 2020, because he meant it's one more vote than we need, but he said one more vote than we have. That's not exactly. I've heard that clip so many times. You probably, if you're a political junkie like me, then you probably heard it a lot. And I've always wondered why he said have and not need. But anyway, that none of that made it into Mark Meredith's summary of the feud between Donald Trump and Brian Kemp, and as well as Brad Raffensperger, and Trump started the whole attack Kemp and his wife repeatedly, both at that rally and then on his Truth Social account. But that was my political comedy, the Fox News bias that I showed, and now I'm going to get to the 4 news summaries and then a few newsmaker clips. I have the news summaries in order from longest to shortest here. And the longest one is ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. It's the host George Stephanopoulos with their reporter Selina Wang talking about 2024 polls tightening. Donald Trump questions Kamala Harris's racial identity, and then Kamala Harris picking her vice presidential running mate over in the longest news summary I'll talk about with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. What a dizzying summer it has been. The earliest presidential debate ever, an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, Joe Biden's withdrawal, the swift rise of Kamala Harris. And now, as the vice president conducts final interviews today with possible running mates, a brand new race. Our 538 polling average shows Harris has tightened the gap against Trump in the key swing states, with slight leads over Trump in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. All this has the former president and his campaign scrambling for a clear strategy. After questioning the vice president's racial identity at a black journalists conference, Trump says he will not attend ABC's September debate. And last night in Georgia, he focused much of his fire on the state's Republican governor. Senior White House correspondent Selina Wang was on the scene. She starts us off this morning. Good morning, Selina.
Good morning, George. Former President Donald Trump rallied here in Georgia last night, trying to court voters in this critical battleground state. He was clearly testing new attack lines on Vice President Harris, trying to see what would stick. All of this as the vice president is on the verge of choosing her running mate.
I'm thrilled to be back in the great state of Georgia. I love Georgia.
Last night at a rally in battleground Georgia, former President Donald Trump reopening old wounds, attacking the state's Republican Governor Brian Kemp and his certification of the 2020 presidential election results in this state.
He's a bad guy, he's a disloyal guy, and he's a very average governor. And all he had to do is sign something where the Senate would like to look at election integrity.
Trump also testing attack lines and insults on Vice President Kamala Harris just days after she rallied at the same Atlanta venue.
So we have to work hard to define her. I don't want to even define her. I just want to say who she is. She's a horror show. She'll destroy our country.
3 months to the election, Harris now officially securing enough delegates to become the Democratic nominee for president.
I will officially accept your nomination next week once the virtual voting period is closed.
Making history, the first Black woman and Asian American at the top of the ticket, only the second woman to be a major party's nominee. The rapid search for her running mate now in its final phase. Sources say Harris is meeting with top contenders in person in D.C. this weekend, including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
Governor Shapiro, are you planning on meeting with Vice President Harris this weekend?
I think any process questions like that should go directly to the Harris campaign.
Those who've also been vetted for the ticket, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Also on the short list, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
I'm flattered to even be mentioned in this context, and it's a very important choice, and she's going to make the choice that is right for her, for the ticket in the campaign, but most of all for the country.
Harris is expected to announce her pick by Tuesday night, when the pair will appear at a campaign rally in Philadelphia before a multi-day blitz through 7 key battleground states. It all comes on the heels of Trump's controversial comments at the National Association of Black Journalists conference on Wednesday.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always identified as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
Trump later went on to share this photo of Harris and her family wearing traditional Indian clothing and writing, "Your warmth, friendship, and love of your Indian heritage are very much appreciated." Harris has long embraced her Jamaican and Indian heritage, as well as her identity as a Black woman. As senator, she joined the Congressional Black Caucus. Harris reacting to Trump's remarks by drawing a contrast with his campaign.
It was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better.
And Donald Trump is now throwing the debate schedule up in the air, saying over the weekend that he accepted an invitation for a Fox News debate on September 4th. But back in May, Trump already agreed to a debate on ABC News on September 10th. Vice President Harris has not agreed to that Fox News debate. Her campaign is saying that Trump is running scared and backing out. On social media, Vice President Harris posted, quote, "It's interesting how any time, any place becomes one specific time, one specific safe space. I'll be there on September 10th like he agreed to. I hope to see him there." George?
Okay, Selina, thanks very much. Let's bring in Republican Congressman and Trump ally Byron Donalds.
And I don't have clips of Byron Donalds, although there were actually two really great cross-examinations of Byron Donalds, on two issues. George Stephanopoulos, I think, did a great job of showing how Byron Donalds would not answer questions, including about that whole Donald Trump attack on Kamala Harris for she turning Black after being Indian rather than just being biracial. If you're really interested in that, over in the live comments here, I will here's a link to the entire transcript of the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos program. But what I found really amazing about Trump's speech in Atlanta that didn't get a lot of play, they talked about his fight with Kemp and his and Raffensperger in Georgia in a way that's probably going to mess up his ability to win Georgia. But did you hear when he started to attack Kamala Harris? They're not doing very well. Trump said something that he totally contradicted himself. If Joe Biden had said this, it would be like, he's senile, he's got to drop out. What was it? Trump said, you saw this in the last clip. So we have to work. I'm reading from the transcript that I just put a link to in the video, in the live comments there. So we have to work hard to define her. I don't even want to define her. I just want to say who she is. What does that mean? I don't want to define her. I just want to say who she is. What an oxymoron that dude is. What else can I say there? But anyway, I am going to now show you the news summary from the non-news organization Fox News, and this is actually a three-part news summary. First, Shannon Bream was off this week. They had Jacqui Heinrich in as the host, and Jacqui Heinrich had two reporters. First, Lucas Tomlinson from the White House, but he's reporting on Biden's Russian prisoner swap deal where they say it was three Americans and a green card holder, American legal resident came home from Russia. A whole bunch of people were, there's some Russian political activists who were released as well. And anyway, they talk about that on Fox News. I guess maybe because one of the people released was Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, and the Wall Street Journal is owned by the same corporation as Fox News, although they often won't even mention that. And also, they've been attacking Joe Biden for making a bad deal on Fox and airing it after all the pressure the Wall Street Journal put on the Biden administration to get a deal. Now they're like attacking the deal, which is kind of hypocritical as well. But then they have the second report is from Trey Yingst about Israel bracing for Iran's retaliation because they have to keep, conflict in the Middle East as a hot topic. Not that it's not a hot topic. It actually is something that is a little bit scary, but that's front-loaded on Fox News, even though nothing is actually that newsworthy. Bracing for retaliation is like a story about something that might about to be a story. Like people think there might be an upcoming story, so we're going to report on that, which is also kind of Fox News bias. And I've pre-criticized the clip enough, I think, so that I can show it to you and talk about it with you a little more after we watch Jacqui Heinrich, Lucas Tomlinson, and Trey Yingst report on the most important news to Fox News yesterday over here.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. A check of the headlines. Tropical storm Debbie is gaining strength as it moves slowly through the Gulf of Mexico and up the western coast of Florida. It could make landfall by late tonight or early Monday morning as a hurricane. In Washington Saturday, a U.S. district judge ruled Donald Trump presented, quote, no meaningful evidence that the White House or Justice Department targeted him for prosecution, sweeping aside for now his efforts to dismiss the federal criminal election interference case against him. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered more warships and an additional jet squadron to the Middle East as Iran vows revenge on Israel for the recent assassinations of Hezbollah and Hamas leaders. In a moment, we'll get reaction from White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby and Senator Lindsey Graham. We'll go on the ground in Israel, though, with Trey Yingst. But first, we're going to turn to Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson at the White House with the fallout from a prisoner swap with Russia that brought home 3 Americans.
Good morning, Jackie. Outside the nation's capital, President Biden welcomed home those 3 Americans freed in a prisoner swap with Russia. But the looming threat from Iran followed Biden to the flight line.
Was the chance for a ceasefire ruined after the assassination of Hania?
It's not helped.
The Americans returned hours after President Biden spoke to Israel's prime minister and one day after the assassination of Hamas's political leader inside Iran. Biden reportedly told Netanyahu to stop escalating tensions in the region. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich reunited with his family after being detained unjustly for 16 months. Former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan held for over 5.5 years. And Alsu Kurmasheva from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Vice President Harris celebrated the moment.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances.
5,000 miles away from Andrews, a similar scene played out in Moscow when Russian President Vladimir Putin welcomed home convicted spies and hackers, including an assassin who was freed from a German prison. Not all detained Americans made it home, including a school teacher and a ballerina. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says things were different during the Trump administration.
We damn sure weren't going to create a market that encouraged the Ayatollah in Iran or the Chinese government or the Russian government to take more innocent Americans.
At Andrews, President Biden was asked if he had a message for Putin. The president responded with a one-word answer: stop. Jackie?
Lucas Tomlinson reporting from the White House. Lucas, thanks. Joining us now is Trey Yingst in Haifa, Israel. Hey, Trey.
Jackie, good morning. The Middle East is on the brink of a much larger war. Overnight, dozens of rockets were fired by Hezbollah into northern Israel. The barrage marked a routine event along the border, but not the main response expected by Iran and its proxies in response to the killing of Hamas Politico leader Ismail Haniyeh. Iranian officials reportedly arrested 24 people linked to the intelligence failures that led up to that targeted assassination. A funeral was held late last week for Haniyeh, mourners gathering in Doha, Qatar, before he was buried. Another funeral was held for a Hezbollah commander killed in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut. The group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, has vowed revenge. Multiple countries, including Jordan and France, are calling on their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. And American assets are moving closer to the region, along with thousands of American Marines and sailors with 12 warships. The Pentagon says this is all part of a deterrence force and that further escalation is not inevitable.
The secretary will be directing multiple forthcoming force posture moves to bolster force protection for U.S. forces region-wide, to provide elevated support to the defense of Israel, and to ensure the United States is prepared to respond to this evolving crisis.
Here in the northern city of Haifa, there is concern among Israeli officials about the possibility of Iran trying to target the port behind me, one of the most sensitive locations in Israel. Jackie?
Trey Yingst for us reporting from Israel. Trey, thanks. Joining us now is White House National Security Communications.
And I don't have any more clips from Fox News to show you because I already showed you that one of Mark Meredith. That was my Fox News bias clip. And they actually didn't really discuss Josh Shapiro very much specifically. They had a brief discussion of the vice presidential selection process, but not kind of the controversy that I'm going to discuss with the clips I picked out from the other programs. One thing that they showed in there that has been getting so much play on Fox News as showing how, and I think I saw Trump even mentioned that it shows that Kamala Harris can't speak without a teleprompter. The comments she made about the importance of diplomacy on the tarmac when Evan Gershkovich and the other prisoners came back. They've been playing that over and over again on Fox News and calling it a word salad. I mean, this happened, I believe it was at like midnight or something when it's not like she's not having busy days. So she's probably a little tired. And here, I'll play what she said again that they're saying is so ridiculous. And it's not that bad. I mean, it's not the most tight statement, but it's, a reasonable thing to say when at midnight when you've been running for president for a week or whatever over here.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances.
5,000.
I mean, was that really so bad? I have Chong here now. Chong doesn't think it was so bad. Cheech is over on the floor. They're both coming in as live viewers like Sandy the dog used to do all the time. I'm glad to have them both here, and I have a bonus Cheech and Chong the kittens clip after the newsmaker clips I'm going to show you. But do you think that Kamala Harris clip was that bad? I mean, compare it to like what I just showed of Trump before, or quoted like, we don't want to define her. We just want to say who she is, or like 1,000 other things that Trump says that, I mean, how can they be going after Kamala Harris when Trump is their candidate on some issue like that? That's my opinion. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. And now I'm going to get to the next news summary is from CBS News Face the Nation. The guest host this week is Ed O'Keefe, and they cover the election with a new CBS poll from Anthony Salvanto. And, usually I criticize the news programs when their new poll is like the big news story, because polls aren't really a big story. They're just like a snapshot in time, and you have to like combine them with other polls and stuff. But this is kind of a special moment in the campaign where we're all like looking to see how is Kamala Harris matching up. There's been a big change, and Biden was losing, and now it looks like Kamala Harris is like dead even, probably is going to even pull ahead of Trump a little bit. That's what we see in this new poll from CBS that Ed O'Keefe and Anthony Salvanto discussed at the beginning of the program in the clip I'll talk about with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Good morning. Welcome to Face the Nation. Margaret is off. We're now just hours away from presumptive Democratic nominee Kamala Harris announcing her choice for a running mate. And today, CBS News has learned at least 3 of the contenders: Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly are traveling here to Washington to meet with the vice president in person. And as she holds those meetings, we're getting a fresh look at the state of the race nationwide. A new CBS News poll shows Harris has something President Biden never enjoyed this year: a slight edge over Donald Trump. And across the battleground states, the 2 candidates are tied, 50-50. All in all, an essentially even race. For more, let's go to our Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Good to see you. Happy Sunday. Out on the road this week talking to Democratic voters, there was a sense of increased enthusiasm, excitement, a sense that they might actually be able to win this thing now. Is the polling reflecting that?
Good morning, Ed. And the short answer is yes. Let me remind everybody, this is a shift because Joe Biden, when he was the nominee, was down 5 points nationally to Donald Trump. So what's behind this is really interesting because you see more Democrats now say not only are they excited about Harris as the nominee, but that they're going to vote. And that'll make your poll numbers go up. In fact, if you look at our estimates across each and every one of the battleground states, from Pennsylvania to Michigan, down south, Georgia, Arizona, and others, they're all even or close. And that is your reset race. You see core Democratic constituencies saying they're going to vote. Specifically, black voters are enthusiastic. Their numbers of saying they're going to vote are up from July. And I want to talk about the women's vote, because not only does Harris do better than Biden was doing, but women tell us they think that Harris would look out for the interests of women much more so than Donald Trump. So it's not just the demographic break, that's the rationale behind it, Ed.
And they were the ones that seemed most excited, women. But bottom line, what you're saying is that over 2 weeks, she's brought the race back to even, in essence.
Yep, big reset.
Now, she'd make history as the first black woman to be nominated by the Democratic Party, potentially the first black woman to win the presidency. Does the polling suggest the country's ready for that?
So when people assess the state of the country, that answer is yes. And I'll give you some historical context. There's an old CBS polling question, goes back 25 years. Which was America ready to elect a black president? By around the year 2000, that number was low. It changed when Barack Obama was running, and it went to a majority saying yes. And now you ask a similar question, is America ready to elect a black woman president? And you get over 2/3, including people who aren't voting for her. That's the state of the country. But what's also interesting, Ed, is the way the script is flipped a little on some of these campaign dynamics, like who has the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. That was something obviously Joe Biden was trailing on before he left the race. Now it's Harris who's seen as having more of that. And she's also closer to Trump on key views like being competent, being effective, more so than Joe Biden was, which all in all goes back to that idea of Democratic excitement, like they think they've got a better candidate to take on Trump.
And explains part of why they've been attacking Trump and calling him weird and raising questions about his age as well, because they must be seeing that as well. Now, the race to define Harris is underway. They're spending tens of millions of dollars in her campaign to play up the fact that she was a prosecutor and has worked with the president on various issues. The former president calling her a San Francisco liberal and doing other things. But on the issues also, does he still enjoy an advantage over Harris, now the Democrat, on the big issues or concerns of voters?
So that's really important because some things in this race have not changed. The idea that you would be better off financially if Trump were elected, Trump still has a big advantage over now Kamala Harris on that. And the idea that his policies would slow or decrease the number of migrants trying to cross the border, that he still has an edge on. But to your point about defining Harris, well, there's a larger number who say they think her policies are similar, mostly the same, but not entirely the same as Joe Biden's. So it's that little bit of difference defining what that is that I do think is going to be key to watch in the campaign in the next few weeks.
Anthony Salvanto is our Executive Director of Elections and Surveys. We'll talk more about it later in the broadcast. Thanks for now.
Thank you.
We turn now to Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton.
And I don't have a clip of Tom Cotton because it's not on my main topic. But as usual, down in the video description under sources, you can click on the link to the Face the Nation YouTube channel where the entire program is uploaded. And you can watch Tom Cotton if you're interested. Oh, by the way, both the kittens, they're walking around now, but I was saying how they were both watching the show. Here's like what I was looking at down to my left. That's like just next to my left foot. Just a minute ago, I took that during the clip so you could see. Now they're like walking around back behind the camera and stuff, but hopefully that won't cause a problem. Anyway, that was a pretty good news summary. Like I said before I showed the clip, usually I criticize the use of a poll as a news story, but this time I think it actually meant something because it told us at least a first look at how the replacement of Joe Biden by Kamala Harris was basically pulled even, maybe slightly ahead, and winning on a lot of the like personality issues. The policy issues are still several losers for Democrats, although not abortion. They didn't really talk about that there, but the idea that Kamala Harris can differentiate herself from Joe Biden a little and maybe take better positions on some issues than Biden had, or that Anthony Salvanto was raising. That's going to be one of the most interesting parts of the next several weeks of this campaign, where Kamala Harris tries to position herself to beat Donald Trump. And if she can hold those positions and articulate her support for them and why they're different from Biden, or why they may be different from the more progressive positions she took in the 2020 primary when she was running to be the candidate then. And so that's something to look forward to. But I want to finish the news summaries and then get to my main topic with the few well, a couple of them are panel discussions, and then there's a newsmaker clip from the head of the United Auto Workers. But first, here's Dana Bash doing an under 90-second news summary covering the two big topics of Kamala Harris choosing her vice president and Donald Trump questioning Kamala Harris's racial identity, and gives you like more information, better information in less than 90 seconds than the almost 5 minutes, I think, of Fox News Sunday's news summary. But you can let me know what you think after we watch that final news summary to juxtapose with the others together over here.
Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Washington, where the state of our union is on Veep Watch. Vice President Kamala Harris is narrowing down her running mate list and will interview top contenders today ahead of her first appearance with her new number 2 on Tuesday. CNN has learned that at least 3 men have made it to the final round and will meet with Harris today. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. But another presidential rite of passage, a fall debate, is not so clear. After this weekend, Donald Trump backed out of a face-off he'd agreed to with Biden and said he would only debate Harris if Fox could moderate in front of a studio audience next month. That came after days of false attacks by Trump on Harris's racial identity. Last night, Trump praised these comments from a speaker at his Georgia rally.
A few days ago, President Trump said he didn't know Vice President Harris was a black woman. I'm trying to figure out what all the outrage is about, because she's only black when it's time to get elected. While you're touting her as a savior for black people, she identifies as an Asian woman. She chose her side, and it wasn't ours.
Here with me now is a former top Harris aide and now U.S. Senator from California, LaFonza Butler.
I'm from California, and I almost forgot LaFonza Butler was our senator. She's like filling in for Dianne Feinstein after she died, waiting for basically Adam Schiff is pretty much guaranteed to take over that seat next year. But She talked about that, and I don't know who that activist was. She's only black when it's time for an election. What about going to Howard University? Didn't she go to historically black college? Or is it historically an HBCU, historically black college and university? I guess Howard is a university, but that was, I mean, that was a ridiculous clip that we didn't see in any of the other news summaries. So I appreciate Dana Bash and CNN giving us that. Now I'm going to show you the few clips to round out my topic about what the controversy is and the divides in the Democratic Party that are making it difficult for Kamala Harris to choose the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, even though he does, Kamala Harris has to win Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro is really popular in Pennsylvania. He has like a 60+% approval rating in Pennsylvania, way above either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And that would be a great thing to have on the ticket, although usually vice presidents don't make much of a difference. But he's Jewish. He's wrote this article when he was 20 years old in 1993 at the University of Rochester, I think it was. He wrote an editorial in which he claimed to have volunteered for the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli Army, when he was there in high school. He spent some time in high school working on a kibbutz in a fishery and stuff, and he did some volunteer work on an Israeli military base. And what he did when he was a teenager in high school and what he wrote when he was a 20-year-old college student, I don't think is really a way to decide what his views are now, 30 years later. So much has happened since then in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and his views on Israel and Palestine and Netanyahu and all those, it's very close to Kamala Harris and the other people who Kamala Harris is considering as a vice president, but for some reason he's singled out because he's Jewish, and that the commentators on this CNN discussion panel I'm about to show you, they're horrified that's happening, but politically maybe that's what's got to happen. It's it's immoral, but that's probably what they're saying, that she probably can't pick Josh Shapiro, even though he's the favorite at the moment. We'll see, but I want to show you this discussion here between CNN's Dana Bash and Shermichael Singleton, Ashley Allison, and then this former Trump aide, Matt Mowers, all talking about the first anti-Zionism and then maybe anti-Semitism that may be a problem in picking Josh Shapiro, especially because of the Arab population in Michigan. Maybe he'll help win Pennsylvania, but help lose Michigan. That's kind of what's going on in the decision process, and I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that panel discussion from CNN yesterday together over here.
But I want to touch on the Shapiro issue. I think out of all of the possibilities, he would potentially be the worst one if I'm looking at Michigan. You're seeing resurfacing past
worse for Democrats or for
Democrats
for Republicans?
and for Vice President Harris to win the state of Michigan. Past statements are coming up about things he stated in the past about the Palestinian people. Some of his rulings as governor as it pertains to state workers and their potential advocacy, which could thus lead them to being fired, has caused quite the conundrum and criticism from younger progressives. I think there is a large percent of Muslims in the state of Michigan that would absolutely stay home. I went to look at some of those numbers in 2020 compared to now. The vice president cannot afford to lose a substantial number of them. So I would look at someone else. If I were Democrats, I don't think that would be the best pick strategically.
Shermichael, Josh Shapiro's position on Israel, on Netanyahu, on the Middle East, on protests, is almost identical to the other Democrats she's talking to. The only difference is that he's Jewish.
Yeah.
So should she just give in to that?
Well, you know where I stand on that issue. I'm as pro-Israel as they come, and I've had many conversations about that. But I think that it speaks to a bit of the problem with younger progressive Democrats and the ceasefire. I think likely we'll see protests return again to college campuses. You and I have had those conversations. I certainly don't think it's a good thing, but it showcases within the Democratic Party, there is at least, and I wouldn't say broadly speaking, but there is the appearance of some level of anti-Zionism. I'll put it that way at best. And that's a problem.
Let me bring Matt in.
Well, look, I think, to Jeff's point, She's picked essentially folks who have been largely vetted, who have been largely, gone through the ringer, so to speak, in her final selection here. Now, I do agree with Shermichael. At the end of the day, this is going to be about which candidate can unite the largest share of their party. There's a ever decreasing number of undecided voters, so it's going to be about, can Kamala Harris unite more Democrats or can Donald Trump unite more Republicans? To the extent that Josh Shapiro would divide Democrats, I find morally reprehensible. I think it's awful that the level of anti-Semitism that we see among largely the progressive left, not exclusively, but largely, and that is what might actually factor in. I hope, in a lot of ways, Vice President Harris actually steps through that and says, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to actually stand up to my own party on some of this. I'm going to actually say we're going to pick potentially the next Jewish vice president. Now, at the end of the day, I do think we have to get back to the core of one thing, though. Donald Trump isn't wrong when he says that voters are going to vote on the top of the ticket, not on the second for the vice presidential nominee. We see that consistently year after year, every cycle. We have a lot of conversation. We dedicate a lot of airtime to who the vice presidential nominee may be. But ultimately, it's going to be about Trump versus Harris.
Let me get you in, and then I want to turn to Georgia.
I thought about this, so I reached out to some folks last night who have been a part of the uncommitted movement. And it's not about a person's identity. It's about their policy. Folks want a ceasefire in the Middle East. They want people to be safe, to be able to live, and to be able to thrive. And whoever the vice president selects, that's the overwhelming census for the Democratic Party as well. And so whoever the vice president picks, that is what they want the policy to be. It's not about, she knows what it means to be a history maker. She is making history every single day. So she understands how important it would be to a community to have the first Jewish person on the ticket. It's about the policy, not about the actual person.
Let's talk about Georgia last night.
So, yeah, the CNN commentator there at the end, Ashley Allison, claims it's about the policy, not the person. And they talked a little bit there about the deplorable anti-Zionism / anti-Semitism of not wanting Josh Shapiro on the ticket, even though he has the same policy as the other possible vice presidential picks. And that kind of contradicts what Ashley Allison said there. But I want to juxtapose that with a similar conversation that ABC had on their panel discussion. And this is George Stephanopoulos talking with Rachel Scott, who's also from ABC, who was at that National Black Journalist Association. She was one of the questioners of Donald Trump there, who I almost took a clip of that to show you. But then there's also Politico's Jonathan Martin, and they kind of have a similar analysis. But I'll talk about that a little more about what's in both these clips after we watch that analysis together over here.
By tomorrow at this time, we're likely to know who Kamala Harris has picked for vice president and for her running mate. She's having several interviews today. In the end, though, this is going to be a very personal decision for her.
It's going to be a personal decision, and she's the vice president of the United States right now. She has most recently gone through this sort of vetting process, right? And so I think that the campaign is keeping a few things in mind, especially when we're talking about Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Obviously, who she can have sort of that relationship with if she should be elected as president of the United States, but also who can help her in some of these critical battleground states as well. And when we look at those polls and start to see the shifts toward Harris, the momentum that she is gaining, that is key. And I know that's top of mind.
Jonathan Martin, we heard Chris Christie say he thinks Josh Shapiro is the clear, smart choice for the vice president. But he's also become the target of a pretty remarkable campaign, including one Politico reported on by the Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman taking him on.
The two prominent Democrats in the state going at it here, which is a sort of long-running feud between those two, very ambitious individuals, shall we say. No surprise there. I think she picked Shapiro unless one of two things happen. She either takes a survey in Michigan and sees that while Shapiro helps her in Pennsylvania, he'd lose her votes in Michigan because of the Arab American population, or there's just no personal connection there, and she can't get past the lack of chemistry. I think unless one of those two things happen, or both of them happen, I think it's Shapiro.
In the end, it is that personal chemistry which is always the tipping, tips the decision over.
So yeah, there ABC talked about the problem a little more subtly without mentioning anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism or Josh Shapiro having the same policy views as several other vice presidential candidates, but there's this whole, no one talked about this whole like genocide Josh campaign to keep him off the ticket that I've seen from some of the people on the left, some progressives that I work with on other issues. And I mean, both the Republican and the Democratic Party have been too supportive of Israel and Israel's occupation of the West Bank and its imprisonment pretty much of the people in the Gaza Strip. And the Democratic Party under Biden has moved farther away from that than I've seen in a long time in terms of putting pressure on Israel, but it's still not a fair position from the point of view of someone who believes in the rights of Palestinians to self-determination and to end their subjugation that has lasted for such a long time in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, although there are a lot of nuanced reasons for that that put blame all over the place as well. But I don't want to go into that whole conflict. I'm just saying that people can have a variety of nuanced views. I think the Democratic Party is too pro-Israel. The Republican Party, the American government, has been too supportive of bad policies that people on the Israeli left have opposed as well. There's a big peace movement in Israel. And anyway, I talked about this many other times, and I am going off on a tangent here, and I didn't want to, but I just wanted to make the point. The other point that Jonathan Martin from Politico there was making about the chemistry between Kamala Harris and whoever she picks as vice president, and you saw George Stephanopoulos said that often wins out in the process. And when I look at it, I have to say, is Kamala Harris, is she going to have the best chemistry with Josh Shapiro, a Jewish lawyer? Well, isn't she married to a Jewish lawyer? I don't know, maybe my analysis on this is a little bit skewed by actually being a Jewish lawyer, but I think maybe that is where the chemistry is going to be. Well, I mean, you all know I'm an agnostic atheist, but I was raised as a Reform Jew, and it's hard to go through that whole process without being exposed to Zionism in some way, like Josh Shapiro was in his teens, and he talked about in that college editorial and when he was 20 years old. But anyway, that is the analysis I wanted to give on the picking of the vice president, and I still think it's likely to be Josh Shapiro, but if it's Tim Walz, who seems to be the most likely other pick, will probably be because of some poll in Michigan that shows that Josh Shapiro will lose Michigan for Kamala Harris, even if he helps her win Pennsylvania. That's probably what it's going to come down to. And then there's that chemistry question, but I think I have talked that out. And there actually is one other issue. And I usually don't even show panel discussions, but I wanted to because of the reporting on that division in the Democratic Party that's going on right now. But another division has to do with who's most pro-labor, and apparently Josh Shapiro has some problems with that. And Shawn Fain from the United Auto Workers was on CBS News' Face the Nation talking to Ed O'Keefe about the pick and Josh Shapiro having some of these issues, and talking also about Mark Kelly maybe. And that's the final Newsmaker clip I'm going to show you before my bonus Cheech and Chong, the kittens clip at the end. But let's watch this and talk about it after we watch together over here.
And you know that this weekend she, of course, is trying to sort out who should be her running mate. There are believed to be at least 6 in the mix. 4 governors, a senator, and a cabinet secretary. And of those 6, give us a sense. Who's your favorite? Who would be the best for organized labor?
Well, I mean, you know, we've really broken down these candidates, really looked at them, and I'll tell you, my favorite's Andy Beshear from Kentucky. I mean, the man stood with us, you know, on the picket line. He's been there for workers throughout every bit of our walk, and he's won in a state where Mitch McConnell's from. I mean, it's been a red state traditionally, and he's won twice there. And I just believe he brings a huge dynamic, and I believe the Harris and Beshear ticket would be unbeatable. I believe both of them would just be such dynamic candidates. But we really like Tim Walz from Minnesota also. Think he's an awesome guy for labor, 100% behind labor. And those would be our top two if we had to pick any. But ultimately, look, I mean, Vice President Harris has to pick who she's most comfortable with. Because it's her running mate and it's who she's going to be serving with. So, that's who we believe would be best for labor and for working class people. But, that's her decision.
You didn't mention the Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. I know he has been supportive of private school vouchers, which is not something the teachers' unions are a fan of, understandably. Are there any other union issues in his history?
Struggle, yeah.
Well, are there any other union issues in his history?
I mean, I just, one of the bigger ones is the school vouchers, obviously. And, I don't believe that, public education should be, it's been under attack under the Republican administrations forever. And, but they want to pass vouchers so that the rich people can subsidize their kids' educations, and then the working class kids can get excluded because there's no guarantee we can go to those schools. But that's one of the bigger issues we see with Shapiro.
And Mark Kelly, this Arizona senator, recently didn't support this legislation that essentially provides more legal protections for unions, makes it easier for people to unionize. Suddenly he supported it as his name starts getting floated. Is doing that enough to assuage your concerns about him?
Not really, because when the PRO Act was out there, when it was being discussed and debated, people showed where they were when they voted on it. And that's what we look at. And so that was a concern of ours. So obviously that's a problem area for us.
If Shapiro or Kelly are the guy, does it make it harder for you to convince union members to go out and knock on doors and to vote for Harris?
I don't think it makes it, impossible or harder. Obviously there's just candidates we think are better for labor. And ultimately, look, we know this. Kamala Harris is for labor. She's for working class people. This election is about, we saw this in our contract campaign for the Big Three. 75% of Americans supported us in our strike because they're all, union or not, they're all living the same thing in this country. The wages are being suppressed. We don't have adequate health care. People want retirement security, and they want their lives back. They don't want to have to work 7 days a week or 2 and 3 jobs. Kamala Harris gets that. And if you look at the comment you guys played by former President Trump a little bit ago about talking about the governor from Georgia saying he was very disloyal, that's the difference in what this election's about. Trump expects people to pledge loyalty to him. It's all about him. Kamala Harris is about the people, and that's what this election's about. And that's why I believe the people will vote for Kamala Harris.
Real quick, do you think J.D. Vance and himself calling himself the most...
So there you go. That's the president of the United Auto Workers Union, having some misgivings about Josh Shapiro, but not the ones about the anti-Zionist or anti-Semitic ones, more that he's for private vouchers and had some friction with the labor unions. But that is hopefully a better reason for Kamala Harris not to pick him, although as Shawn Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers Union, said at the end there, it's really going to be whether Kamala Harris is pro-union, not whether her running mate, who she's choosing sometime in the next 12, 16 hours. And I think it's going to be Josh Shapiro, but I think we all understand what the factors are going to be. You can let me know what you think in the comments there. It's been a long time since I've had like more than 100 live viewers at once. I'm not sure what algorithm brought you all to me, but this is the show that I do every Monday, my Monday Media Mix-Up. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about the political commentary and media criticism I have added to the clips I picked out from the Sunday shows yesterday. I'll be back next Monday and every Monday all the way through at least January 2025 to keep doing this commentary criticism show for you all every week. And as I promised earlier, I am going to end the show with a bonus Cheech and Chong the Kittens clip. Here's Chong the cat really likes these spring toys, and I put it in the middle of a tunnel and got to some good video of both of them kind of playing with it. I think the best part of this clip is actually at the beginning this is Cheech going through the tunnel at the beginning, then Chong over here. Those are Cheech and Chong, the kittens, who we adopted from the shelter back in December. They came with the names Cheech and Chong, and they're brothers. I think they were born like September 1st, so they're still not quite a year old, but they're not quite kittens, but they're still very cute, and I think still make some good videos. You can let me know if you like that. Let me know what you think of the program that I put together for you. And maybe I'll have some time to upload some other video during the week, not a live stream, like an edited, produced video. I'm trying to make more of those as I'm winding down my Monday media mix-up, but until I have some other reason to upload a video, or until I see you next Monday, I guess I will just be seeing all of you around the internet.